Clever Cub Learns About Love. Mama Bear and Clever Cub sat by the river at the end of a long, happy day.
"I love you, Mama Bear,"
said Clever Cub. "I love you too," Mama Bear replied. And she gave her little cub a big bear hug. Mama Bear said, "There are many ways to say I love you, you know."
"I know,"
said Clever Cub. He picked up a pine cone and handed it to his mama.
"You can give someone a present."
"Thank you," Mama Bear said with a smile. "That is a very snazzy pine cone. But there are other ways, too. This river reminds me of a story about one of those ways."
"Is it a story from the Bible?"
Clever Cub asked.
"I love those."
He loved to imagine what it was like to live in Bible times. "It is," Mama Bear smiled. "Good guess." Then she began the story. Many years ago, God's special people called Hebrews were slaves in a land called Egypt.
"What's a slave?"
asked Clever Cub. A slave was someone who had to work very hard for no payment. Slaves were not free to do what they wanted to do. They had to do just what their masters told them to do. Their lives were very, very hard. The thing is, God blessed his people with more and more children. Soon the ruler of the land, called Pharaoh, became afraid. He said, "There are so many Hebrews, too many and too mighty." Pharaoh was afraid that the Hebrews would take over the land, so he made a terrible, horrible rule. Clever Cub listened hard. He pulled his ear. He did that sometimes when he was worried. Mama Bear said, Pharaoh's rule said this: every baby Hebrew boy must be thrown into the river.
"Oh no!"
Clever Cub gasped.
"That's too terrible and too horrible."
He pulled both ears. It was, Mama Bear said sadly. But one Hebrew mama had a plan.
"A clever plan?"
asked Clever Cub. "Very clever," Mama Bear replied. She made a basket out of the tall, strong reeds that grew by the river. She made it big enough to hold her baby boy. Then she covered the basket with tar so the water wouldn't get inside. And what do you think she did next?
"Did she put her baby in the basket?"
Clever Cub asked. She did. You are a clever cub. And she was a clever mama. She put the baby boy she loved so much in the basket to save him. Then she set the basket in the river, and it floated out among the river reeds. Clever Cub was thinking hard.
"That clever mama saved her boy from being hurt by Pharaoh's terrible, horrible rule. Is that how she said, 'I love you'?"
asked Clever Cub. "Yes, it is," Mama Bear smiled. "But there's more. Someone needed to keep an eye on that basket. The river was full of dangers. Snake bites and hippo stomps and crocodile chomps. But that baby boy had a big sister, and she was brave. She went down by the dangerous river, and she watched over her brother. She made sure that nothing bad happened to him."
"Oh, I bet that was scary,"
said Clever Cub.
"Down there by the snakes and the hippos and the crocodiles. And with all the gnats and mosquitoes, it was probably itchy."
Clever Cub squirmed and wriggled. He was feeling itchy now, too. "I'm sure it was," Mama Bear nodded. "But even though it wasn't easy, she did what she could to protect her baby brother."
"And that's love too?"
asked Clever Cub. "It is," replied his mama. "But there's even more. One day, Pharaoh's own daughter went down to the Nile. Back then, even princesses used the river water for their baths, just like we bears do." Clever Cub looked surprised. While the princess was there, she spotted the basket. She sent her servants to fetch it for her.
"Oh no!"
Clever Cub said. "I'm sure that's what the baby's sister thought too," said Mama Bear. When Pharaoh's daughter looked inside the basket, she saw the baby. She knew he was a Hebrew child. Clever Cub hid his eyes.
"Did she throw him into the river like her father told the Egyptians to do?"
"No, she didn't," Mama Bear said. The baby cried, and the princess felt sorry for him. She wanted to take care of him. Then the baby's sister was brave again. She went right to the princess and said, "Shall I get a Hebrew woman to feed the baby for you?" The princess nodded and said, "Go." The girl went right away and
Told her mama!
Clever Cub shouted. "You are a clever cub," said Mama Bear. Yes, the girl got her mother, and the Hebrew mama cared for her baby boy until he was old enough to live in Pharaoh's palace with the princess. But he was still a Hebrew boy. He was still in danger. The princess knew this and decided to adopt him as her very own son to keep him safe. And that's when Pharaoh's daughter gave the boy his name, Moses, which means I pulled him out of the water.
And is that love too?
Asked Clever Cub. Definitely, Mama Bear nodded. Her father saw the Hebrews as slaves and enemies, but the princess saw the face of a precious person just like her, and that is love.
I love that story,
Clever Cub grinned.
and I'm going to see if I can pull something out of the river too.
Then I'd better come with you, Mama Bear replied.
To watch over me and make sure nothing bad happens to me,
Asked Clever Cub.
because you love me.
Mama Bear nodded. Yes, definitely, because I love you.